I am a lifelong man-baby, die-hard Kingdom Hearts fan. I have the Kingdom Hearts slippers, my original Kingdom Hearts 2 poster from 2006, and tons of odd toys and figures that I don't hide in my closet and snuggle with every night. I've got my Heartless beanie, who reflects who I truly am inside, a toilet paper roll keyblade that my friend had made for me when I was in the 3rd grade, and I still have it. Oh, it looks... Oh boy, it kind of looks like the end broke off. Whatever. I have a Keyblade that I bought from a Spirit Halloween because I'm pathetic. In my wallet, I have a faded and barely visible receipt from Walmart when I had purchased Kingdom Hearts 3 on the day of its release. Needless to say, I'm a fanboy of Kingdom Hearts, and I've been following the franchise since I was a little kid, and I'll probably be following it until the bitter end, whether that comes from COVID or Tetsuya Nomura's vicious tirade around Square Enix. I've been doing the channel for about 3.5 years now. I played some good games, I've played some bad games, but I've never even touched my favorite game franchise of all time. The Kingdom Hearts series has actually finally come into PC on the Epic Games Store at prices so overbloated they make frickin' Pete look like Jack Skellington. That I thought it'd be fun to just go ahead and rank these pointy-haired nuggets because there's no law saying that I can. And if there's no law, you can't be prosecuted in court. That's something my uncle told me. Right before he drove his truck into a massive anthill. I'm ranking all 10 Kingdom Hearts games, and I'm not including Final Mix re-releases or the ones that are not a game, but it's just a really bad movie.
This is borderline experimental. This makes no sense at all.
Note that these are my opinions, which means I'm smart, you're dumb, I'm big, you're little, I'm right, you're wrong. There's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, Union Cross, it's a mobile game. It's a crappy, overly monetized, dull mobile game that's so convoluted that it makes the rest of the series seem like a Saturday morning cartoon show. Less Danny Phantom and more In Between the Lion, if you can comprehend that level of comedy. A better analogy, it's actually more like Chalk Zone, or maybe like Chowder. I'm gonna have to sleep on this and mull it over, actually. Oh well, there's not really much to say about this one. Oh god, I dropped it. Oh crap. For me, the worst actual Kingdom Hearts game that's not a stupid mobile game has to be Recoded. If you're even slightly familiar with Kingdom Hearts, you know that this one, it's a big blunder of a Kingdom Hearts game. The story has almost no bearing on anything, and it's never really ever mentioned again outside of the hurt I feel. Oh boy. It's got some neat ideas for a DS game with some of the loot rolling systems that allow you to get better loot depending on what modifiers you have. It was just a case of an underpowered system trying to bite off too much and at the same time not really biting off anything. But overall, it's the most segregated and pointless game in the franchise.
Hello!
Chain of Memories barely squeezed past Recoded on the list because Chain of Memories is a bit more like a video game until you realize that you can just Sonic Blade your way through the whole game, which breaks every single fight. Not that you'd want to get out of the fighting, because the actual walking around is so dull and tedious thanks to the segregated, randomized room layouts. Anytime you're in these sections, it sucks away the entire soul of an adventure game. Sure, you can change the way the rooms are laid out, and it can have some interesting effects on how you play the game, but for the most part, nobody's going to argue that this is better than an actually handcrafted level from a game developer. No, I'd rather have an actual level to explore rather than these empty halls, which gives the term Hollow Bastion a whole new meaning. Chain of Memories has a more interesting story with a whole new rogues gallery of evil bad guys to face, with distinct personalities and relationships that you get to discover and learn on how they're manipulating each other and backstabbing each other. It's incredibly interesting, and they're very memorable characters.
I don't want to. Goodbye.
Even the disgusting evil twin of Satan is given some character to work with. Chain of Memories is often associated that it's the moment in Kingdom Hearts' history where it all of a sudden got complicated, which I don't really agree with. It's no coincidence that Sora loses his memory at the end of the game, which is probably a sign that you shouldn't really remember this game either. It's just a little side story that had its importance overblown due to people expecting things from it that it actually was never trying to do. Everyone thought it was the next big Kingdom Hearts game, but in reality it was just a side game that Tetsuya Nomura made just so that he could appease people who didn't have a PlayStation 2. It's just a shame that the game is slow and sucks. Doody. We're at my local grocery store. Gonna get myself a sootie. Yummy sootie. Wait, what is this on my shoe? What is that? Oh no! Ah! Birth by Sleep 0.2, a fragmentary passage.
Look at what's in that thing.
Is a demo. It's a demo for another game that would surpass this one in both quality and frame rate. Definitely the frame rate.
This is the worst thing.
It's a glorified hype machine that they slapped onto the Kingdom Hearts 2.8 package just to give it more meat on its bone. It's only 2 to 3 hours long and it's inoffensive, but it's hard for me to justify putting it on a higher spot on this list when it's just a demo compared to other games on the list where they're fully formed 30 to 40 hour experiences. It's a fine game, it's just, just a demo. It looks nice. Yeah, it's just number 6. No special transitions or anything. It's just number 6. So yeah, you can skip ahead to this part. I have to go to the bathroom, so consider this like a little break. Skip to this part in the video. You go? Oh God! Quick! Hit it! Quick! The transitions are coming! Oh wait! Where am I? Oh God! Where am I? Oh God! Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, plus 2 weeks, plus leap years, is a fine game, and it's a really interesting story with characters that you grow to love and care about. The game's narrative focus switches over to the side of the organization, and as the story unfolds, you actually get to understand the plights and struggles of evil bad guys. It gets you to really care about these characters, which is something even a lot of modern AAA games can't get right. Last of Us 2. The game's combat and mission structure, while designed for the DS's pickup and playstyle, really didn't lend well to the story. It's mostly monotonous levels and pointless missions make this game a really hard one to play on the original DS. At least in the HD remasters that they put out, they cut out all that crap and you're just left with the good story stuff. But even then, there's a lot of fragments of the game's design interfering with the pacing of the story. Lots of long, pointless mission talks and stuff that, without the context of gameplay, is pointless and it just fills time. But when you get to that juicy drama we're all craving, it's like the best soap opera you can get. Like, Days of Our Lives ain't got crap on this. From this point on, every other KH game is all good stuff. It's just a shame that Dream Drop Distance happens to be one of the worst in a good lot. Triple D's Nuts is a fun, fast-paced, hardcore, parkour-filled romp. Yeah! Dream Drop Distance sees your two protagonists, Sora and not Sora, going through the dream worlds to see if they're truly worthy to hold the golden pan. That's the story, right? I forgot. In order to properly wield their golden pans, though, they must use the command deck, which was introduced in Birth by Sleep, but is used to a much less effect here. In Birth by Sleep, there were a lot of commands that weren't just meant for combat. A lot of them were for utility and gaining items, and since movement isn't much of an issue for Dream Drop Distance, a lot of the commands here are mostly used for combat. Which is fine, but I missed that kind of creative edge from Birth by Sleep, that not all of the commands were just there to whack enemies with. Another big problem that stops this one from getting any higher up on the list is that this is the game in the franchise that made everything convoluted. The addition of time travel is such a comically bad one that it feels like it was a mistake in the writer's room. Like Nomura just vomited on the typewriter and he passed out and woke up 9 months later in the future, and the game was already done. It was out. He tried, but it's in store shelves, buddy. Look what you did. This is all your fault. It was a good game overall, but with the messy story and, for the series standards, really bad voice acting.
You again? What are you talking about?
Even though flow motion makes me want to frickin' flip off the monkey bars at the park, it's still not enough to really save the game.
Turn it off.
Birth by Sleep to me was always like the middle child. Like, I liked them well enough, but I wouldn't say like take a bullet for them. Most likely like duck behind them in case of an emergency, you know, like someone comes in the bank, I throw them in front because, you know, I can live without them. But recently I replayed through the whole thing and I've actually found that it was way better than I remember. It's a crazy good action RPG and hands down the best game on the PSP. Birth by Sleep, seeing as it was like a prequel to the series and having 3 separate campaigns to complete, it's just stuffed with content, things to do like Mirage Arena, which it kind of sucks to be honest, but it's there in case you want more BBS goodness. My favorite thing about Birth by Sleep is that when you have the first campaign and you move on to the next one, not only is the levels and story different from campaign to campaign, new levels, items, new keyblades, and play styles, but when you complete one, the next one you do is even faster. The first time I beat the game on Ventus's campaign, it took 14 hours. The next campaign, I played Terra. I beat it in 9 hours. The next campaign, I was Aqua's. I beat that in 6 hours. In the game, all 3 campaigns have the same amount of content, but you're getting faster and smarter and more efficient every time you go through it. It's like the game is training you how to speedrun, and it just makes it super fun to get through a campaign and just immediately blow through the next one in just a couple hours. The only problem is that the 3 characters you play as in all the campaigns, they're all a little uninteresting and dull. The threats and stakes are far more interesting than they are, which is a problem, but you still manage to care about them a little bit. This is also the first game on this list that you don't have to segregate it off into different categories. Like Dream Drop Distance had good gameplay but bad story. That 358 had good story but bad gameplay. This is the first one where the gameplay and story are both of equal quality. The first truly great game on the list. The OG, the one that started it all. I have to give a lot of respect to the original Kingdom Hearts 1. It's the one that got me hooked to the series. It's got tons of other people hooked to the series. But unfortunately, Kingdom Hearts has sort of started to show its age a little bit. The gameplay's not as tight or as fluid as the games that would come after it, and it really does show the game's age, especially compared to the advancements in action games afterward, like Devil May Cry, and even Kingdom Hearts 2. The camera is not that great, and the maze-like level designs can be a little nauseating at times. Everyone's complained to death about Deep Jungle and inside of Monstro. Sorry, I got sidetracked. The story is so focused. It makes it the most cohesive game in the series. It feels like a really tight package all put together. The game in comparison to the other ones is much more laid back. It's much lower toned. It has a much stronger vision for the world and its setting. It shows such reverence for the Disney films and of the past and incorporates them into the worlds, the best in the series in my opinion. It felt genuinely exciting to visit new worlds, new gameplay changes, and new enemies, and new boss fights, and just being able to experience this brand new universe with endless possibilities. Disney and Square Enix have clashed like the freaking Titanic and the iceberg, except for sinking into the ocean. It shot right up into the air and came down like a giant cannonball and crashed into other ships. It was just an excellent way to start off this franchise, that these 3 characters could go off and have the adventure of their lifetime. Finally, after years of anticipation, multiple spin-off games on different consoles, Kingdom Hearts 3 has finally come. This was undoubtedly the most exciting game release I've ever had. A game that even cynically jaded internet basement dwellers were looking forward to.
I'm done!
I'm done! I can die now! Holy sh**!
Even after most of the internet turned its back on Kingdom Hearts and its confusing plot lines, the hype wagon around Kingdom Hearts 3 was just insane. I know it might be obvious at this point, but I love Kingdom Hearts 3. To me, it's an almost perfect conclusion to this chapter of Kingdom Hearts. The series will be continuing on after this point. In fact, it kind of already has. But who cares about that crap? What I love about Kingdom Hearts 3 the most is just how much love has clearly been put into this game. All the way from the interactions of the characters,
What's all this about?
to the tiny little details in the game,
Hey, what happened to my voice? You sound funny. So do I.
to the music referencing the previous games in the franchise. It's just a love letter to the fans, and it's just a joy to play and explore these wide open and massive worlds. They just cranked up the game's world design so much, it makes you feel like you're playing Kingdom Hearts for the first time. Also, if you happen to open up your eyes a little bit at all during this part, then you would notice that how freaking amazing this game looks. So gorgeous. That look good. I'm honestly at a loss for words of how they managed to cram even more detail in the world and running at a smoother frame rate than 0.2. How's that possible?
This is the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
The only substantial criticism I have is that there's very little post-game content, at least compared to the other games in the series. And that if you want that nice, juicy post-game content, you're gonna have to purchase the $30 DLC. In the DLC, the organization fights are some of the best boss fights in Kingdom Hearts history, which Kingdom Hearts has already had some of the best boss fights in all of gaming. And to say that Kingdom Hearts 3 does it best, it's a pretty big accomplishment. It's just a shame that you have to pay an extra $30 to get to that juicy post-game content. The game's everything I hoped it would be, and the game's ending, which the past few games have been building up to, is something that, for a Kingdom Hearts fan, will mean everything to you. I love Kingdom Hearts 3, and it would be my favorite KH game. But... well, great, that gives it away. Kingdom Hearts 2 is a difficult game to talk about. It's always difficult to talk about something you love so much. I mean, if we were in a bar sharing a drink, I could just ramble on about it for hours, but taking my thoughts and condensing them into a structured and formatted discussion is hard. Where do I start? How do I approach what, to me, feels almost unapproachable? Well, maybe I could just start at the beginning. In 2007 AD, a smelly little boy watched his aunt play Kingdom Hearts 2 for the first time after they found a copy at a local Walmart after the game had been out for months, almost unaware that a sequel had been made after playing the first Kingdom Hearts on their PS2 that had no memory card, so he would leave it on overnight to save his game, and eventually, of course, someone would come in and turn it off, and which means he'd have to start all over again, and start all over again he did, replaying Kingdom Hearts 1's intro over and over again, getting stuck on the Clayton boss fight in Deep Jungle, but seeing a new game with a new character he's never seen before, and getting his heartstrings tangled up in the weaving plotline of a game that would obsess him and change his life. It's been a long time since then, and not a day goes by where I don't think about it. Not a day where I don't quote some random line of dialogue and giggle to myself.
Gee, I just don't know.
Not a day goes by where I don't break out into singing the song Sanctuary. Kingdom Hearts 2 is in the running for my favorite game of all time. It goes neck and neck with Bloodborne and Spyro 3. Even then, neither of those games get me as worked up as this one does. This game has some of the best characters and most engaging story I've ever played. It's as silly as everyone says, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It just connects with me on another level that makes me feel bad that I'll never be able to connect with another game like that like I have with this one. The game always rides that line between playful fun and gut-wrenching moments that just...
I'm sad.
laughing at its jokes and then laughing at the things that aren't jokes. Kingdom Hearts 2 has accomplished something that a lot of modern games haven't been able to achieve, which is a sense of discontent. It's very small and very specific, but it's emblematic of the way Kingdom Hearts' tone comes across through its themes and characters. When I mean discontent, I don't mean discontent in the negative sense. Oh, the game wasn't as good as I was hoping kind of discontent. It's a discontentness that feels very intentional and sure-handed. Kingdom Hearts 2 completely nails that feeling perfectly through the character of Roxas, a person who's suffered tremendously and is given an ending that, while not perfect or ideal, but is required for Sora to be his own person. While it's sad and bitter, it was always the best ending. Roxas even feels grateful for being able to have done the things that he's even done.
Yeah, but you and I did it. We got to meet our original selves.
It's just a twinge of sadness that's the cherry on top of a great game, and it colors and contextualizes the whole game.
That's right! He used to give me that same exact look.
And the experiences of the gameplay. I'm pretty sure I think everyone knows where I'm going with this. Oh yeah, baby, I'm talking about the boss fights. Ouch. The Organization 13, one of the best rogues gallery of villains to face in any game, with tons of memorable characters and their leader to top it off, Xemnas, a great villain and incredible final boss of the game. And amazing boss fights is something that Kingdom Hearts 2 doesn't lack at all, because Kingdom Hearts 2 has one of the best combat systems in any hack and slash game, with all the new abilities, drive forms, and keyblades, all the way from the revenge value system to the best difficulty setting in gaming, critical mode. It's literally the thing that takes it from being a great action game to being one of the most refined single-player combat systems ever. Most difficulties in games have enemies that have more health and do more damage, but Kingdom Hearts 2 Critical Mode makes the enemy stronger and they make you stronger too. Sora actually does more damage in this difficulty and is awarded more abilities early on, so that way you can get to the crazy combat faster. It makes it a game where almost every enemy encounter is memorable and dangerous, but it's completely fair. Well, mostly fair. The speedrun and challenge run communities love this game because it's so refined and can always be done a little bit faster and a little bit more efficient. And that a PS2 game from 2006 can still do that while most modern games get abandoned after the first year. It's a game that I recommend to everyone. It's a perfect game in my eyes and it has very little faults. In fact, those faults are so minor, I won't even mention them. Okay, I'll mention them real quick. The level design is more flat, more open, and it makes them feel less like worlds and more like pictures of the world. They're made that way to accommodate for the faster and more explosive combat, but the Cavern of Remembrance in Kingdom Hearts 2 has proven that a more involved level design can and does work for this game. Also, the Atlantica world is crap. It's a long rhythm minigame world, and maybe the most embarrassing thing on the PlayStation. It's more embarrassing than the box art for the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory game. To be fair, you can completely skip the Atlantica world, and I always do. Outside of that, there isn't really any big problems or major flaws. Kingdom Hearts 2 is a special game. It holds a very dear spot in my life, and it always will. You know, after writing this, I think I can now say with all confidence that Kingdom Hearts 2 is my favorite game of all time. Now please, excuse me. Me and Kingdom Hearts 2 have some catching up to do.
How long